I would describe myself as a cis white male. Kind of a plain person. I think I don't have like any interior differences, I guess. Sometimes um, people will look at me a certain way if I'm in a neighborhood where I might be the only person that's white. Sometimes I find myself like trying so hard to be colorblind that it just backfires and all I can think about is race. And it's an awful thing.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
is there anything that like you agree with or like disagree with what he said, or anything that you found particularly interesting?
Well, I find it interesting that he mentioned how he was uncomfortable being the only white person, like being in a neighborhood where, I guess he's talking about like being in a black neighborhood, and yeah, feeling uncomfortable being a minority.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like, from my perspective, it's always like you're like as an actual minority, like being in a room full of white people. That's how it always
Yeah,
is. And
exactly.
like, it's not that it's uncomfortable, but I guess like from his perspective, it's kind of a thing that's like makes him uneasy because he's not used to that.
I think a lot of white people have never experienced that.
And you suddenly realize you're different when you are the only one that's a certain way.
I identify myself as a Latino artist. I would say people's perception sort of matches how I identify myself because here there's not much of what's the word Latino representation. So the fact that I am a student of color and I am an artist and I'm continuously working on projects and stuff like that, that people do see me that way. When you're in an environment that there's a lot of people that are similar and you're not of that similarity, it tends to stick out. People tend to see you differently, whether it's negative or positive or just the simplicity of being different. It's still a difference. Do you feel that your perception of others is influenced by race? Yeah, I would say yeah, and because that's something you can't avoid. Yeah, it's something you can't avoid. Whether the perception comes with good, like good ideas or bad ideas about a person, positive or negative thoughts about people, they come regardless. Something you can't hide from, given history. Yeah, that's all. Bye.
I mean, I think that it's interesting that he mentioned like not having enough representation of like a certain race at at schools in general, because like I think that that's a large problem. A lot of times, like when you're a minority, it's like you're the only one in like a room full of white
Especially
people.
in higher education.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so if you watch GW graduation, you could literally count on two hands the amount of colored people there were.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Who graduated, which is pretty.
And like he said both about others' perception of himself and his perception of others, whether it's good or bad, you notice. Like it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
Which is funny because the guy in the last tape was talking about his anxiety, and he said that he's trying so hard to, be colorblind, and it just doesn't work.
But that's the question. It's like, can you actually be colorblind? Like, is that
no
a possibility?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think it's possible.
I think you can be more or less biased, maybe. Mm-hmm. You can hold less racial prejudice or more, but I don't think that anyone. I mean, when you think about it, it's like even if you were literally colorblind, you would still be able to tell the difference between races, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it shouldn't, ideally it should not be a negative thing, recognizing difference, because, like, recognizing difference can just mean you respect all the nuances between, like, human existence. Like,
It doesn't have to be a negative thing. It could be an appreciative thing.
Right. Well, I'm a guy. I'm 25, going on 26. Well, I'm white. People try to guess my race because I'm pretty dark skinned.
Oh my god.
They never done the get shit for being white, but I'll manage. I get attracted to women with darker skin, but you know, I'm still jungle fever every now and then.
Oh my god.
what?
Yeah,
Is that it?
that's it. That's the whole recording.
So wait, to recap,
Do you want me to play it again?
he's white. People have trouble figuring out where he's from because he has darker skin, and he sometimes
The
likes
dark-skinned
to
white guy.
have sex with women of color because he sometimes gets jungle fever.
Correct. This is all what he said.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think fetishizing is, like, this.
But I really find
It's like one of the, I don't know, it's just one of the lowest forms of racism for me, because I think because fetishizing is objectifying, and it means that you actually do not consider the person to be in any way, shape, or form, like, you just have completely lack respect.
yeah.
Yeah, and you dehumanize them.
Yeah, dehumanized.
It's like a thing that you sometimes want. Sometimes. Not all the time. But sometimes.
You get jungle
Every
fever
once in a while.
and you can't help it.
He gets that sickness. That
Jungle fever. Yeah, even the name.
It's just like what I really found interesting about the recording was that he says it in such a matter-of-fact kind of way that he doesn't even realize that that's an issue.
Yeah.
Like,
And
To-
like
frame his
That's
sexual
what-
preference as having jungle fever. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, like.
And
he's-
also just that's what that's what he said.
Can't just not acknowledge someone's cultural background, you know? It's kind of disrespectful in a way. But I don't look at people and see, oh yeah, they're this, they're that, and just think that all the time. I look at them as people. And I admire their culture rather than look at them like, oh, they're that person, they're that ethnic background. I don't look at them like that. I just consider them people. Because that's all we are, just people.